Hey everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to jump into Act 1, Scene 2, which I misspoke a little bit previously in the last video. Scene 2 is not where we meet Juliet. Scene 2 is where we're going to beat some more characters and some more stuff is going to kind of work out. But we're not going to meet Juliet yet. We meet her in Scene 3. So I do apologize for that. A couple other things I want to lay out. Ages with some of these characters. Um, Some of the other ones we're going to talk about a little bit down the line. First one I want to talk about is Romeo. Romeo is about 18 years old. So as we go into some of the later story, I want you to keep that in mind. Romeo is about 18. So let's go ahead and jump into scene 2. So let's see. All right. So scene 2, we're going to have a couple characters enter in. Capulet, which is Juliet's father. Paris, the County Paris, or Count Paris, a young man that is, we'll find out a little bit more about him, and Peter. Peter is a servant of the Capulets. So they're coming into the scene. And this is, you can expect that Capulet has already talked to the prince about all this stuff. And this is kind of some information here. So we get into this in mid conversation. So Capulet comes in and says, "But Montague is bound as well as I in penalty of life. And 'tis not hard, I think, for men as old as we to keep the peace." He's like, you know what? Montague has the same oath that I just took. We both face the same penalty. And you know what? It's not going to be that hard for old men like us to keep peace. And Paris says, "Of honorable reckoning are you both. And pity 'tis you lived at odds so long. But now, my lord, what say you to my suit?" So he says, "You're both honorable people. You both have great reputations. And I hate that you've been enemies this long. It's a bad thing." But then he switches gears and he's like, "But, my lord, what say you to my suit?" He's like, "But, what do you have to say about what I've asked you?" And Capulet says, "But saying o'er what I've said before, my child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride ere we may think her right to be bride." So, Paris has asked Capulet if he can marry Juliet. Now, Paris is around the same age as Romeo, if not a little older. He's asked Capulet if he can marry Juliet. He wants her hand in marriage. And Capulet says, "My child is a stranger in the world. My child is young. She's still very young. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. She isn't even 14 yet. She's still 13. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride ere we may think her right to be a bride." He's like, wait about 2 more years. Let her hit about 15, 16 years old. Then we can start thinking about this. But Paris isn't having that. Paris says, "Younger than she are happy mothers made." He's like, hey, girls younger than her get often and become happy, get married often and become happy mothers. And Capulet says, "And too certain marred are those so early made. Earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she. She is the hopeful lady of my earth. But woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. My will to her consent is but a part, and she agreed within her scope of choice lies my consent and fair according voice. This night I hold an old accustomed feast." So he's like, you know what? Yeah, girls younger than her are made parent or mothers, but they grow up too soon. They're kind of marred. Whenever you're marred, you're like uh like if somebody mars your face or some accident mars your face, it's gonna leave marks and it messes it up. So he's like, yeah, or younger than her are mothers, but that kind of messes them up. Earth has swallowed all my hopes but she. So he's like, all my other children, they've died. She's the only one. She's the lady of my life. But woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. He's like, but you know what? Try to make her love you. Court her, woo her, go after her. And my consent, me saying that you have my permission, that's only a part of this. The rest of it is her choosing you. So what she chooses, what she wants, that's where I'm going to give my blessing. Now, remember this, because that is going to become a big thing later in the play. So he says, "This night I hold an old accustomed feast, whereto I have invited many a guest, such as I love, and you among the store. One more most welcome makes my number more. At my poor house look to behold this sight, earth treading stars that make dark heaven light. Such comfort as do lusty men feel when where apparelled April is on the hill of limping winter treads. Even such delight among fresh vernal buds shall you this night inherit at my house. Hear all, see all, and like her most whose merit most shall be, which on more view of many, mine being one, may stand in number, though in reckoning none. Come, go with me." So he's like, "Look, Paris, I'm going to have a party tonight, and I've invited a lot of people, and you coming being one more, that's just going to make it even better. So there's going to be a lot of pretty ladies at my party tonight. I want you to come and I want you to look at them. I want you to look at them. I want you to choose them. And I want you to choose who the best one for you is. And if it's Juliet, if it's my daughter, fine. But you might not think so. You might find somebody even more beautiful." So he likes Paris. Capulet likes Paris. He's got really probably not a lot of problem with him marrying Juliet, just not now. And he's telling him to go ahead and look around. Like, this might not be the best fit for you. And if it is, fine. But if it isn't, go choose somebody else. So he gives Peter, the servant, a piece of paper. "Go, Sirrah, trudge about through fair Verona. Find those persons out whose names are written here, and to them say my house and welcome on their pleasure stay." So he hands him the guest list. He hands the servant the guest list. And he says, "Here, go find these people, tell them to come to my house. Here's their invitation. Go give them their invitations." And Paris and Capulet leave with Peter there with the guest list. "Find them out whose names are written here. It is written that the shoemaker should meddle with his yard, and the tailor with his last, the fisher with his pencil, and the painter with his nets. But I am sent to find those persons whose names are here writ, and can never find what names the writing person hath here writ. I must to the learned in good time." They've given him a list, and he has to read the list and go off and find the people. He can't read. So, "I can't read the list. I don't know who it is." So he goes, "To the learned. I must go to somebody who can read. Somebody's got to help me." Well, in come Romeo and Benvolio. Benvolio says, "Tut, man, one fire burns out, another's burning. One pain is lessened by another's anguish. Turn giddy and be helped by backwards turning. One desperate grief cures with another's languish. Come take thou some new infection to thy eye, and the rank poison of the old will die." He's still telling him, he's like, "Go find you another woman. Go find you somebody. Like, get over this girl. Get over Rosalind. Go find you somebody else." Romeo says, "Your plantain leaf is excellent for that." So he's talking about an infection in your eye and stuff like that. He's talking about like heartbreak. Benvolio is. And Romeo's like, "You know what? They make medicine for that. I'll need to listen to you." And Benvolio says, "For what, I pray thee?" He's like, what they make medicine for what?" And Romeo says, "For your broken shin." "Why, Romeo, art thou mad?" He's like, "Yeah, they make medicine for when you cut your leg or cut your shin." He's like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy?" Romeo says, "Not mad, but bound more than a madman is. Shut up in prison without my food, whipped and tormented." And so he's like, "I'm not mad. I'm treated even worse than a madman, a mental patient is. I'm shut up in prison. I don't have my food. I'm whipped and I'm tortured." And he sees Peter. "Good evening, good fellow." He's like, "Good evening." Peter says, God get God I good evening. I pray, sir, can you read? He's like, may God give you a good evening. He's like, can you read? Romeo says, I, mine own fortune in my misery. So he says, can you read? And Romeo's like, yeah, I can read how terrible my own misery and fortune is. And Peter says, perhaps you have learned it without book, but I pray, can you read anything you see? And he's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Perhaps you learned that from life and not from books. He's like, but can you read? Can you read what you see? And Romeo says, aye, if I know the letters and the language. So Peter says, you say honestly, rest you merry. So he thinks when Romeo has said that if I know the language and the letters, he believes that Romeo's just told him, no, I don't know the letters. I can't read. Romeo realizes what he's saying. He says, stay, fellow, I can read. And he reads the letter. Signor Martino and his wife and daughters, County Anselmi and his beauteous sisters, the lady widow of Vitruvio, Signor Placentio and his lovely nieces, Mercutio and his brother Valentine, mine uncle Capulet and his wife and daughters, my fair niece Rosaline and Livia, Signor Valentio and his cousin Tybalt, Lucio and the lovely Helena. So he's read off the guest list. He says, a fair assembly. Whither shall they come? He's like, that's a nice group of people. Where are they supposed to go? Peter says, up. Okay. He's like, where are they supposed to go? And he's just like, up. Romeo's like, where? Whither? To supper? He's like, are they coming to dinner? Peter says, to our house. Romeo says, whose house? Peter says, my master's. He's not giving any information here. So Romeo says, indeed, I should have asked you that before. So he's like, yeah, I should have asked you who your master was before. And Peter says, no, I'll tell you without asking. He's like, you don't even have to ask. I'll just tell you, despite the fact that Romeo's been asking him for, the last 3 times he's asked a question who he's talking about. He says, my master is the great rich Capulet. And if you be not of the house of Montagues, I pray come and crush a cup of wine. Rest you merry. Peter leaves. So Peter's like, well, my master is the rich Capulet. You 2 guys seem all right. So I tell you what, if you 2 guys, as long as you're not Montagues, come on up and get you some wine later tonight. He leaves. Of course, the funny thing being they're Montagues. Benvolio, having heard the guest list, kind of tells Romeo, at this same ancient feast of Capulet sups the fair Rosaline, whom thou so lovest, with all of the admired beauties of Verona. He's like, this party tonight, Rosaline's going to be there. This girl you're so tore up and in love with, she's going to be there. But not only that, she's going to be there with all these beautiful women. Just like Capulet told Paris, there'd be a lot of beautiful women there. So he's like, there's going to be a ton of beautiful women and Rosaline. Go thither, and with an untainted eye compare her face to some that I shall show, and I will make thee think thy swan a crow. He's like, let's go to the party. And you compare Rosaline to some of the girls that I'm going to show you. And I believe that I'll show you some ladies that's going to make your beautiful swan look like a crow. Romeo, of course, responds with, when the devout religion of mine eye maintains such falsehood, then turn tears to fires, and these who often drowned would never die. Transparent heretics be burned for liars. One fairer than my love? Then the all-seeing sun ne'er saw her match since the world first begun. So Romeo says, you know what? If my eyes ever lie to me and tell me that some girl's more beautiful than Rosaline, then I hope my tears burn into flames and burn my eyes out for being liars. The sun itself, the all-seeing sun, ne'er saw her match since the world first begun. He's like, there's never been a more beautiful woman under the sun since the whole world began. And Benvolio says, "Tut, you saw her fair, none else being by, herself poised with herself in either eye. But in that but in that crystal scales let there be weighed your lady's love against some other maid that I will show you shining at the feast. But she shall scant show well that now shows best." He's like, "Yeah, but when you saw Rosaline, you saw her by herself. You didn't get to see her compared to other women. Let me show you. Let me show you that you can look at the two together, and I think I can prove you wrong." And Romeo says, "I'll go along. No such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of mine own." So he says, "I'll go with you, but not because I believe you're going to show me what you think you're going to show. I'm going to go with you so that I can look at Rosalind again." And then they exit. So that takes us out of scene two. Now we know what the main things are going to happen. There's a party tonight. There's a party tonight at Capulet's house. There's going to be a lot of ladies there. And now Romeo and Benvolio, despite the fact that they're Montagues, have decided to crash the party. And that's going to take us out of this act. So, give me just a second, and I'll be back with showing you what I want you to do for this section. Okay, so let's take a look at what I want for you to do for this scene. So, let's go to our Google slide here. So this is what's going to be up for Acts 1, Scenes 1 and 2. And what I was talking about when I share this with y'all, like this question here, it says summarize what happens in these two scenes. You can click in it and type. That way you can turn this in whenever it's time to go ahead and turn in your work. So any of these you can go ahead and turn in. So go ahead and start filling this out and work on it that way. If it's not working and you need to put in another document or something like that, that's fine. But I built this or access this to where you should be able to just do this, fill this out, and just turn this in. So turn this in for scenes 1 and 2, and I will see you next time.